So you like the film photo look, but you don't have access to a film camera and you don't want to go out and purchase one because you just spent all of your money on a brand new digital camera. Well, if this is true to you, then it's your lucky day, because in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how you can make your digital photos look like they were shot on film even though they weren't. The beauty of this is that it works on any digital photos, not just the ones shot on a fancy camera. So even if you don't have a really expensive camera, this will still work for you. If you're coming from my Instagram, it might surprise you that I've actually never shot on film before. I do have this film camera that I picked up from a thrift store for a couple of bucks, but I've actually never even loaded it with film, and I've actually never taken a photo with it. Even though all my photos on Instagram look like they were shot on film, I've never actually shot on film a day in my life. But with that being said, let's not waste any more time. I'm gonna jump onto my computer and show you guys exactly how I make my photos look like they were shot on film. Let's go. All right, so I am behind the computer now and I have Lightroom opened up with a couple of photos from a recent photo shoot that I did. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the first one and kind of show you guys a before and after of the tweaks I'm about to make. So this is the before and this is the after. This is the film look. As you can see, again, this is the before and this is the after. So you can see it looks very filmic and it looks very authentic. So I'm gonna go step by step and show you guys exactly what changes I made into the photo so that you guys can make the adjustments as well. So just a disclaimer, these adjustments won't work perfectly for every single photo. It is gonna vary from photo to photo depending on the lighting situation. So I am gonna be releasing a LUT pack soon that will give you guys a bunch of different settings to try out on your photos. That being said, let's go ahead and dive right into this photo. The first thing I'm gonna do, like always, is I'm gonna start with the exposure. Make sure that when you are shooting these photos, you try and expose as best as you can. Don't blow out your highlights. Don't shoot thinking that everything's gonna be able to be fixed in post. That's not the case. You still wanna have a good photo to start with. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the white balance. I would have kept it as shot, but because there really isn't too much white in this photo, the camera probably wasn't doing a good job at selecting the white balance to begin with. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit auto, and it's gonna do just very slight adjustment, but as you can see, it kind of shifts it to a little bit more greenish tones. So once I'm done with that, I'm gonna proceed to try and make it look as flat as possible. I'm gonna do that by doing two quick adjustments, which is I'm gonna be dropping the highlights, and I'm also gonna be dropping the whites. And as you can see, those two adjustments already have made this photo look 10 times flatter, and that's exactly what you want. You want it to be a very flat and neutral looking image. So once I'm done with that, I'm actually gonna raise the blacks a little bit. I'm gonna go to probably 75. I feel like that's a good spot right there. So as you can see, even that adjustment itself has already made another big difference. And then because I did raise the blacks, I'm gonna drop the shadows just a little bit. I'm gonna go to probably, I'll do maybe like -20. Not a huge adjustment, but you still wanna try and keep the shadows in there. Don't make it too punchy, but you definitely still want some shadows. So once I'm done with the exposure, I'm gonna go into the presence section, and from here, I like to add a little bit of texture, usually go to about a 10, and then with the clarity slider, I like to drag that down to about -. The reason I do this is because digital is very sharp, and digital is a lot sharper than film is, so you definitely want to try and soften it up a little bit any way you can while keeping it natural. So once I'm done with that, I'm also gonna just drop the vibrance to about -5. And again, very slight adjustment, but as you guys can see, with the little adjustments that we have done, it's already looking a lot better, and it's already looking like film. So next up, I like to go into the tone curves. This is where you're gonna be able to add a little bit more of the kind of filmy look, and I'll explain why in a second. So to start off, I'm gonna set a couple of dots in a couple of positions. And then from here, I'm going to do a little bit of adjustments. So I'm going to drop the midtones a little bit on this photo, and then even drop the shadows just the tiniest bit, okay? So you can see it adds a little bit of that punch back, but it adds it in a different way than it would if you just dropped the shadow slider. So once I'm done with that, I'm also gonna drop the highlights again, just a little bit, because when we dropped the blacks, it did make the highlights kind of pop out a little bit more, which I didn't really like, and boom, just like that. So quick little adjustment like that is gonna make it look a lot more filmic. If you wanna take it a step further, you can add that little fade look, which you just do by bringing this up a little bit. As you can see, the shadows start to turn more of a gray color than a black color, but I don't like to do that too much because I feel like it makes it look too cliche. So once I'm done with that, I'm gonna skip all of these settings. I'm gonna go all the way down into the calibrations. Within the calibrations, I'm going to adjust these based on how the photo is lit. So with this photo, I'm gonna go for more of like a greenish tone. So I'm gonna adjust the shadows just a tad bit. Go to about -5. I'm not gonna go crazy on these because I am going to add more green with the split toning tool later. Once I'm done with the shadows, I'm gonna go into the red primary. The reds are gonna be adjusted based on either like a pinkish tone or like an orangey tone. So I'm gonna drop this to like about -15 right there. Green, I like to keep the green on the right side. So I'm gonna go to probably like 50 maybe. And then with the blues, I like to adjust the blues to give that teal look. Here's the before and after of those quick adjustments. Again, very slight, but it does add a little bit of character to the colors. And that's exactly what you want to be doing. You want to be adding character to the image. So once I'm done with that, make sure that your lens corrections are on. So depending on what lens you have, you might have some lens distortion or some vignetting. So I like to make sure that the profile corrections are on. So once I'm done with that, I like to go into the HSL sliders, and from here I'm going to adjust the colors a little bit. So these adjustments are going to be completely based on how the photo looks. I'm going to fast forward through this part because the HSL sliders are really subjective to the photo and how the photo looks. All right, so I'm done with the HSL sliders. As you guys can see, I did do a couple of adjustments. The only ones that were really crazy were these up here, but the reason is because I wanted it to not have too many colors in the photos. You don't want, for this kind of photo, you don't want it to be super colorful, so I kind of took the greens and kind of made them go away. The final adjustment I like to do on any of my photos is go to my split toning. In my split toning, I like to make the saturation on the shadow 100%, and then I go in and change the hue to something like 105 for a green. 10 to 20 is about a good range for me. And then when I'm done with that, I like to half that for the highlights. Adjust the saturation on that to about like 7 because that's about half of 15. So the split toning is where you really do get your film look. So right here, as you can see, split toning. If I turn it off, it doesn't really look that filmic. When I turn it on, it looks very, very filmic. So the final thing I like to do is go into the effects and adjust your film grain. So I like to keep it at about 50. When you're adjusting it, you can obviously not turn it up as much. The more you do it, the more intense it'll look. As you can see, that looks very intense, a little bit too intense for me. But I like to keep it at 50 and the size around 25 and then roughness around 50. And I feel like with these settings, it does look very authentic. The photo is essentially complete. As you guys can see, the before and after looks really, really good. This is how it looks digitally. It's too punchy for my taste, so what I like to do is make those kind of adjustments, and as you can see, now we have a very flat looking photo. It's very filmic looking, and what you can do now is you can hit Control Shift Copy, and then you can go ahead and just copy all the settings you just did, and then go into other photos and then just paste those settings. So if I open up the photos that I imported, I have a couple of other photos here. They were shot around the same time, so the settings that I just adjusted should work perfectly. So let's go into my develop. I'm gonna hit Control Shift V, and as you can see, just like that, made it go from a digital look to a very filmic, gorgeous look. So let's go to the next photo. Same thing. This one, as you guys can see, the highlights are very blown out, which is why I like to do the reduction on the highlights and the whites. But as you can see, there's still some that I couldn't recover. So if you want to hide the fact that your highlights are blown out, you can always just go down into your tone curves and then just drop this down a little bit. So let's move on to the next photo. As you can see, similar lighting situation, but in this photo, it's a lot later in the day, so there's a lot different light going on. So as you can see, when I paste it, the colors look a little too washed out for me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just go ahead and adjust the white balance manually to try and give me a little bit more of a warm tone. I don't want to go too crazy with it. I want it to be like how I remembered it, which was more like that. And then There you go. So before, after, again, very filmic look. Let's head on to our last photo, which is a little bit later in the day. I'm gonna go ahead and just paste the settings. And as you can see with these settings, it's a little bit too intense. For these, I'm going to just increase the exposure a tad bit and then increase the shadows a tad bit. There we go. Because it was a little bit later in the night, we do have less light, which means I want to make sure I'm boosting those shadows. And as you can see, the lens is a little dirty. These are spots on the lens. What I do to correct that is just go to spot removal and then just select where you want it to erase, and just like that, those spots are pretty much gone, and boom, you got a pretty good photo. With this one, I would go in and crop it just a little bit to get her hair out of the way, and boom, just like that. Very filmic, very good looking photo. Here's the before, here's the after. That was the transformation of 5 photos using the settings that I just did. You can just do one of your photos, adjust it, and then just copy those settings over and then do micro adjustments afterwards. Or you can go ahead and just get my LUT pack from my website and use the settings that I used on here, along with a bunch of other ones to get your filmic look. Obviously, it's not going to make every single picture perfect, but it is going to give you a really good head start on it. I haven't actually finished my LUT pack yet, but when I do, there will be a link in the description below, so go ahead and check that out. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you find it pretty useful. If you guys did find it useful, make sure to hit that thumbs up and make sure to comment what you guys thought. If you guys have any questions, always feel free to comment. I'll try to answer every single one. While you're at it, also go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell notification button so you guys don't miss out on future tutorials. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow my Instagram. Link will be in the description below, or you can just follow it at Waldo in Wisconsin. My Instagram is where I post most of my photos and most of my photo work because it's the easiest platform to share my photos on. And while you're at it, you can go ahead and also purchase my prints from my website at Moodydarkroom.com. Go ahead and check out my website, check out my prints, and go ahead and get yourself a LUT pack when it is released. If you guys like this tutorial and learn something new, make sure to check out my tutorials playlist where you guys can learn even more knowledge on how I shoot my photos and how I make my photos look like they do. So, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. All right, see ya.